Well, good evening, everybody. Hey, that's pretty good. So just for fun, and try it again. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Father.
You see, it's part of my Lenten penance, my self-imposed Lenten penance, is to get you more responsive. So I just bear with me, if I prompt you to do things that, you'd rather just not do. You'd rather sit there and not respond. Well, okay, I'm going to prompt you. The other thing, part of my Lenten penance is I'm trying to get you to smile more. You're usually pretty good at that, but I'm still going to try to get you to smile more. The third thing I'm going to try and get you to do is laugh more. And that's the hard one. So on the count of three, I want everyone to smile. Don't do it before I count to three now. But just do it. On the count of three, everybody go like this. Okay. 1, 2, 3. That's good. Now, on the count of three, I want everyone to throw their head back and laugh. Can we do that? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Very good. We're off to a great start. We're off to a great start on this Lenten journey towards God. Because, the reality is, with our human frailty and our human condition and our experience, what Lent tells us, that there's a distance between us and God. Not that there's an actual distance between us and God, but there's a wanting for more within us. A wanting for more of God. That wanting to be reconciled. And it's not because God's trying to stay away from us. No, not at all. It's not like that at all. But it's just us. We can't get over the fact that we're creatures. That we're made from the dust of the earth just like everything else. But we're loved. We're loved by a God who is there and calls us to enter into where we are, the experience of where we are, with an attitude of the gospel that is the joy of the gospel. So it hazard to argue that if the ultimate story of our faith, the story of Easter, that day of salvation, is about joy, and so is all of Christian life. And we can't enter into the Lenten experience fully unless we have that joy of the gospel deep down in our hearts. We're called to it, called to turn towards our God with an open heart, with a joyful spirit, with the courage of faith. And we do that during this Lenten season. That sense of turning towards God in that way is spoken of already by the prophet Joel in the first reading. Joel speaks of turning towards God and giving to God not our garments, not our grains, not our oils, not anything that really isn't all that important to us, but what's most important to us, our hearts, to give our very selves to God, give ourselves over to relationship with God. And St. Paul in Corinthians elaborates on that with that reminder that it's about being reconciled with God, being one with God now. He says the day of salvation is here. Well, actually, it's not. That's Easter Sunday, of course, but we celebrated Easter Sunday before. Christ is risen. For that reason, we can enter into this season of Lent with all that it offers us. That longing for more, fully and completely with a joyful spirit. In the gospel today, we hear Jesus speak of three things that are really characteristic of Lent: prayer, almsgiving, and fasting. But before speaking about these things, Jesus makes it clear that it's about the right intention. Doing it with the heart of God, that is not to be seen, not for any other reason than wanting to be one with our God who created and loves us and calls us towards a deeper relationship in faith. Jesus speaks of prayer and of fasting and of almsgiving. These are all good things. And they remind us that anything that comes between us and our God is a good thing to put aside so that we can enter in more fully and completely and truly enjoy who it is that our God is for us. But nowhere, in fact, nowhere in the gospel does Jesus say you have to do any of these things. None of it is mandatory. Except one thing. There was one thing Jesus says today in the gospel that is mandatory. Did you catch what it was? It was smile. Jesus says, don't look dismal. We have a very clear invitation, a very clear mandate, in fact, from Jesus to smile. Not to let our joy, our misery be sick. I get the sense at times that we think that our Lenten journey is all about showing everybody how miserable we are. It's not that at all. It's our joy. And as people of faith, as we enter into this Lenten journey today, we put ashes on our forehead. And we remind ourselves through that process that we are mere creatures. We do have a distance, a greater longing for God in our lives, a greater longing for communion with God. But it is with an awareness that our God is risen, and therefore our God loves us, that we have the courage to do that. We put ashes on our forehead to remind ourselves of the distance between us and God that we experience, but we do it confident that our God is always there. Jesus experiences everything that we experience. If we experience a distance from God, we know that Jesus experiences it tenfold. Which is why on Good Friday he cries out, "Why have you abandoned me?" But none of it happens. Our God is a loving and faithful God. Our God is a hopeful God. Our God is a joyful God who gives joy to us. And so, now that I've said all that and I've got all deep and serious, I got one more question for you. Are you happy? Yes. That's the right answer. So before we put our ashes on our faces, I'll ask one more time, are you happy? Yes. And as you journey through this Lenten season, don't forget to tell that to your face.